For as long as we've been human, we've had this deep, deep desire to know what happens next. We've looked to oracles, to experts, to polls. But what if the most powerful crystal ball ever invented wasn't a crystal ball at all? What if it was a market, one that claims it can harness our collective wisdom to see the future with just stunning accuracy? This is the story of the prediction revolution. Look, we're all trying to forecast the future, right? We run polls, we listen to pundits on TV, but all of these methods have this one fundamental weakness. They only measure what people say. So a radical new idea popped up, and it asks a totally different question. What if we could measure what people are willing to bet is true?
And that right there, that's the whole game. Polls measure opinion. Prediction markets, they measure conviction. See, when you have to put your own money on the line, when you have what they call skin in the game, your whole motivation changes. You're not just cheering for a team anymore. You are financially driven to find the absolute best information and make the most accurate prediction possible. And this idea, this is the heart of the prediction revolution. So here's the journey we're about to go on. We're going to start with this kind of quirky academic experiment in Iowa, trace its wild path from a college campus to high-stakes commerce, and then we'll dive right into the huge debates it sparked about everything from insider information to gambling. And finally, we'll ask, what does this all mean for the very future of forecasting? Okay, so our story begins not in some Silicon Valley garage, but in a faculty office at the University of Iowa all the way back in 1988. You've got three economists sitting around having lunch, and they're just pondering this simple question. Could a market, just like the stock market, actually predict an election better than a traditional poll? What they built was honestly pretty modest. The server just hummed away in this tiny, cramped little office. With only about 192 traders, mostly students and faculty, they created the Iowa political stock market to try and forecast the presidential race. By 1992, the project had a new name, the Iowa Electronic Markets, and it got this really crucial no-action letter from federal regulators. This basically gave them a green light to keep going as a nonprofit academic tool, just as long as nobody invested more than $400. And you gotta love this quote from the co-founder, Robert Forsyth. It just perfectly captures the humble, almost accidental start to this whole thing. It's a great reminder that what's now a multi-billion-dollar industry, it really just began with academic curiosity and a good conversation. But here's the thing. It worked. It worked incredibly well. Between 1988 and 2004, this tiny university project was more accurate at predicting presidential elections than 964 different traditional polls. That's right, it beat them a staggering 74% of the time. The wisdom of crowds, it turned out, was a remarkably powerful forecasting engine. So for decades, this whole idea pretty much stayed in the world of academia. But then, it just exploded. Platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket took that Iowa blueprint and absolutely supercharged it. They created a for-profit global industry that has scaled up the stakes in ways those original founders could have never, ever imagined. Okay, let's just pause for a second and really absorb these numbers. In that very first Iowa market, the single biggest profit anyone made was $13.54. Now, fast forward to today. We see single users on Polymarket making over $500,000 on one geopolitical bet. The total value of contracts traded across these new platforms, it's estimated to be around $44 billion. The scale is just mind-boggling. And the scope of what you can bet on has grown just as dramatically. It's not just elections anymore. You can bet on Federal Reserve rate hikes, who's going to win the Super Bowl, or even what song Bad Bunny will open with at halftime. The markets range from deadly serious geopolitical events to the purely trivial, basically turning every single aspect of modern life into a tradable asset. But as you can probably guess, as these markets grew, this huge ethical and legal dilemma started to emerge. Where exactly is the line between aggregating public knowledge, that wisdom of the crowd, and, creating a legal backdoor for profiting from secret, non-public information? In the stock market, the rules are pretty clear. Trading on material, non-public info is illegal, period. But for prediction markets, the lines are dangerously blurry. Think about it. If you know for a fact that a certain event is going to happen, you could place a bet for a nearly guaranteed profit. This raises this huge fundamental question about fairness and manipulation. On this has kicked off a really fascinating debate. Is insider information a bug Or is it a feature? On one side, people argue it's a bug. If the public feels like the game is rigged by insiders with secret knowledge, they'll just walk away and the whole market loses its power. But the other side, including thinkers like law professor M. Todd Henderson, argues that no, we want insiders to bet. Their money, the argument goes, forces that secret, valuable information out into the open, making the market's forecast even more accurate.
And this whole dilemma over insider info feeds directly into the second major conflict, a high-stakes turf war being fought in courtrooms and state houses all across the country. The question is pretty simple. Are these platforms innovative financial exchanges, or are they just unlicensed online casinos? So you've got the federal government through the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC, and they're claiming these are financial derivatives that fall under their exclusive authority. But you have a growing coalition of over 38 state attorneys general pushing back, and pushing back hard. They argue these platforms look and feel a lot like gambling, and so they should be regulated and, maybe more importantly, taxed by the states just like sports betting. And the outcome of this legal battle has massive consequences. I mean, it's going to determine who holds the legal authority, what kind of consumer protection rules are going to apply, and, you guessed it, who gets to tax the billions and billions of dollars flowing through these platforms. The entire future of the industry here in the US really hangs in the balance. So, let's just step back. We've gone from a 3-beer lunch in Iowa to a multi-billion-dollar legal war zone. This whole journey has revealed both the incredible promise of this technology and the very serious perils that come right along with it. So, where does all this leave us? Well, the promise is a forecasting tool that's more powerful than almost anything we've ever had before. The peril is a system that could easily be warped by insiders and market manipulation. And the big, unsettled question that remains is where society will ultimately decide to draw the line between a financial instrument and a simple bet. Which brings us to our final thought. This technology really forces us to confront a pretty deep and fascinating question. In a world where every possible future event can be bought and sold, where every single outcome has a price tag, what ultimately becomes the price of truth itself?